Hi, this is David. Let's take a look at John Hull's chapter on exotic options. That's from the book, the textbook, Options, Futures, and Other Derivatives, which is the most important textbook in the Part 1, Topic 3 FRM, and probably the most important in Part 1 FRM. So this is the final chapter that's assigned in a set of chapters from the book. So I certainly wouldn't start with this video. We want to be familiar with specifically the properties of stock options and the mechanics of stock options, because in some ways this is the most difficult chapter that is assigned in topic 3 for the John Hull set of chapters, if only because it contains some of the more advanced math. For example, we have options here that are valued with variations on the Black-Scholes-Merton, which itself is a challenging formula. So we do want to be familiar. On the other hand, as you'll see, for purposes of passing the exam, we don't need to fully comprehend all of the math that's going on here. And as I go to the learning objectives, I'll show you why that's true, or I'll reinforce that. And we have the learning objectives. These have been stable in the FRM syllabus for several years. And you'll notice that we don't have any what I like to call quantitative action verbs. There's no really calculate or compute. And if we go down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth learning objective, this is the one that's really the most important because it contains most of the learning material here in the single learning objective, because it's a list here of most of the exotics that we're going to take a look at. And it's identify and describe. It's not compute. So if you want to take a look at the formulas, by all means do that if you want to take a deeper dive. I have a learning spreadsheet in development that I'll soon deploy that actually prices most of these and the complex math that's going on. It's taken me quite some time to build that out. But for those who are interested and want to take a deep dive, that's available. But per the learning objective, for purposes of just passing the exam, be mindful of your time and the fact that you certainly don't need to explore these formulas in detail to really do what you need to do for this chapter. I have a summary exhibit here. It's just got some of my notes as far as some of the things I want to remind you as a takeaway. So that's all this is, not meant to be self-supporting, but just some summary here on the mechanics, for example, or the payoff here in the case of the look-back call. And then some notes, in particular for 4 of these options that are path dependent. I just want to remind you of that. We'll talk more about that soon, but just want to remind you about the path dependency, if nothing else, because it's an easy question to ask on the exam. And so if we take a look at the learning objectives here, starting with the simple idea of let's distinguish between a plain vanilla and an exotic derivative. Up until now, in the previous chapters, implicitly we've been talking about plain vanilla stock options. So those are options with well-defined properties, and in general they would trade on exchange. As you know, in order to trade on exchange, the specifications, the contract specifications, need to be standardized. So we oftentimes don't say plain vanilla because it's implicit. But now that we're looking at exotic, we want to draw that distinction. And so exotics are simply going to be non-standard options. And therefore, they generally trade, they are not exchange traded, but over the standard. So that should be familiar from back when we looked at futures, right? Because we contrasted a future from a forward, and they're economically similar, but the futures is standardized and trades on the exchange. Here in this case, the exotic is an exotic derivative or exotic option is not vanilla. It's non-standard. So in general, it's not going to trade on the exchange. It's going to trade over the counter. What are some of the factors that drive the development of exotics? Well, they could meet a genuine hedging need in the market. Sometimes there are tax, accounting, legal, or regulatory reasons. And they can, in the case of speculation, they can certainly be designed for the speculator to take a view on potential future movements in market variables. So although those are pretty sensible reason for financial product innovation, Hull does insert a cynical reason, and it says that occasionally an exotic product is designed by an investment bank to appear more attractive than it is to an unwary corporate treasurer fund manager. What does he mean there? Well, this is the creation of a product for purposes of just to be able to sell it to certain customers who may lack the sophistication, if for no other reason than to make a profit. So he explains that as a possible reason.